Story 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's friend she is too old and ugly after repeatedly asking my son to take off his shirt? My family had a small get-together at my house. One of my wife's friends is over. She's unmarried. I think she's 45 to 47. We aren't too close to her since she lives pretty far away. She was over our house and she started complimenting my son. My son is 19. It starts off innocent, but as time goes on, it gets more and more crossing the line. When we were out on my deck, she started telling my son to take his shirt off. What's the point of going to the gym if no one will see it? My son is visibly uncomfortable and tries to shut her down. She repeatedly is asking and is getting more aggressive with it. I interject and I'm like, "Hey, Kathy, I think you're a bit too old and ugly for my son." This got her upset really quickly, and she excuses herself to the bathroom and starts crying. My wife goes to comfort her, and then later she leaves. At the end of it, my wife is super angry with me for saying that I should have said, "Hey, Kathy, looks like you had too much to drink," or something else. I told my wife that Kathy, by the way, this is not her real name, works a corporate job. She has had training on this, and that she knows better, and our son was uncomfortable. He is 18 plus, but he doesn't know how to deal with an adult, let alone someone saying that in our house. I told my wife flat out that if I was to invite a guy friend and he was to ask to see our daughter in a bikini, my wife would have called the police. She says it's different. I tell her that I was way kinder to Kathy than I would have been had a guy said something like that to our daughter. And I told my wife that Kathy needs to apologize to my son before she can ever come into our house again. Overall, I think I was fair. If Kathy had just said it once, and I said that I think I would be the a-hole, but the fact that she kept repeating it, that's why I said it. And I wanted her to get the message that yes, I am upset, that's why I included the ugly part. Alright, no argument that what Kathy was doing, inappropriate. Doesn't matter if the kid's 19 or not, doesn't matter if the kid's 20 or 30 or for her age. You don't keep asking someone to do that kind of stuff when they have said, they don't even have to look uncomfortable. If they just no, stop, leave it at that. That's harassment. So Kathy, absolutely in the wrong here. Now, calling her ugly, too ugly. I get that you're trying to diffuse the whole situation with a joke and you're kind of frustrated and everything like that, but I do have a problem when people bring looks into stuff. It just sends a bad message overall. I mean, I think it's kind of understandable. Like I said, you're frustrated. You've been telling her to stop it for a bit now, but I don't using, people's looks as a value of them in that kind of way. It doesn't come across great. So, you were trying to protect your son. You were frustrated. I don't think that you're an a-hole, but I think the ugly part may have been crossing a line. I honestly would have just pulled her aside and been like, "Kathy, if you don't stop, you're going to have to leave. It's not okay." Story 2 of child-free weddings and entitled parents losing their minds. My fiance and I are going to get married in a few months, and we've decided we don't want kids at the wedding. Kids are loud, they run around, they break things, and we don't want to have to deal with that on a day that's supposed to celebrate our relationship. We've assigned the roles that are usually performed by children to our beloved pets. My dog will be the flower girl, my fiance's dog will be the ring bearer, and my 2 cats are co-maids of honor. Our friend's boyfriend's sister and my brothers and their partners think this is adorable. Alas, our other relatives do not share this enthusiasm. Boyfriend's parents said they thought it was strange and were hoping that his cousin would be the ring bearer, but they've accepted it because they want us to be happy. My parents threw an effing fit and accused me of placing animals above children. I calmly explained to them that this was my fiance's and my wedding, and it really wasn't their place to decide who would be a part of it. Our pets are well-trained and well-behaved, which is more than I can say about our relatives' kids. My parents aren't coming to my wedding because I refused to follow a certain sexist wedding tradition, father giving away the daughter. My dad told me since I was robbing him of his moment, there was no reason for him to be there. Good effing riddance. One of my friends I've known since childhood is a mother of 3 and was going to be one of the bridesmaids. She was horrified when she learned that my dog and cats will be at the wedding party. Surely her 3 ill-mannered kids should have had that honor. She threatened to not come to the wedding. I made it easier for her by taking her name off the guest list. My cousin, who has 2 kids, told me rather smugly that she would bring her kids anyway. When she and her family were actually there, surely I won't be able to do anything about it. I told her I would have her husband, and their kids escorted out by security. That shut her up. My fiance's friend asked him to make me replace my dog with his daughter as the flower girl. He was warned to never bring it up again. This wedding will be a special day for my fiance and I, and we will not let other people's entitlement ruin it. Edit. Many of you expressed concern that the wedding will be too stressful for our pets. I assure you it won't be. First of all, in all 32 people will be there, all of whom our pets know and are comfortable around. Second of all, the ceremony won't be a traditional one that lasts over an hour. Ours will be over in 15 minutes. Our pets won't be at the reception, which can be overstimulating. Someone sent me a DM asking if the kids' feelings will be hurt. I doubt any child actually enjoys weddings. Plus, we'll be sending all children of relatives and friends gift baskets with toys, chocolates, etc. I think they'll be pretty happy. I fully accept that they want a wedding without kids. That's totally fine. I think that's great. Like, we had a story a few videos ago where they weren't letting a kid who was going to be 18 at the time go to the wedding, but that kid also was making the wedding dress. And that felt a little off to me. This is fine. You're saying no kids, and it's a small reception. And honestly, I think the one thing that you should consider, though, is for people who are I'm not going to be able to get someone to watch my kids and travel that far, so I can't make the wedding. Then if you're the one setting down those rules, you have to be okay with that. And it sounds like they are. It sounds like they're very understanding of people. And so, yeah, I think this is totally fine. You should be able to do what you want. And to the person writing this, your parents sound like jerks. That sucks. The fact that the father's I don't get to give you away, so what? Are you sad that you're not going to get the dowry of a couple goats and everything? I know it's a big tradition, but does it have to be? Seriously, sometimes we can call traditions into question and they can stop being traditions. That's fine. That happens all the time. Get over it. Story 3. Entitled Mother Kills Her Child and Ruins the Career of My Sister-in-Law. Hey folks, content warning, fairly obvious for this one, but it seems this story is going to contain some discussion of the death of a child. If you're not comfortable at all with that, please skip to the time code that my editor has put on screen, and you can skip on over to the next story. First of all, it is a long and a horrible story, so apologies in advance. Second, English is not my first language, so pardon any mistakes I may make. This happened in August 2017 and involves 2 lengthy lawsuits, one of which lasted 1.5 years and another for almost 2 years. I'm not directly involved in it, as it happened to my sister-in-law. Back in 2017, my sister-in-law, SIL for short, was in her final year for nursing school. She was required to intern as a trainee nurse for 6 months. She chose to join a private school for her internship. It was one of those international private schools where kids of ultra-rich parents go. Part 1, the incident. 15th of August is India's Independence Day, and there was a celebration in the school. It was your usual flag ceremony with a flag march by students and student band. Some plays by students depicting events of the freedom movement, some cultural exhibition put together by each class, food and game stalls by teachers, etc. At the end of the day, top 3 class performances, plays, and cultural exhibition were awarded, and select students were given Certificate of Excellence for outstanding performances. Everything was going normal in the beginning, but a student collapsed during the parade, so he was brought to the doctor's office. Doctor checked him and found that he was running a moderate fever. He was also slightly dehydrated. So the doctor gave him some medicines, asked for my sister-in-law to give him a glass of glucose water. He scolded the kid for participating in the parade while in fever and wrote him a note excusing him from any further activity. He then asked the kid if his parents were present, and the kid said that his mother was there. So the doctor told him he could go home if he wanted, or he could sit in the shade with his mother to watch the rest of the ceremony. The kid asked if he could just stay there and rest for a while, so the doctor said that he could use one of the beds to take a nap. Since there was nothing else to do in the office, the doctor excused himself to go and have something to eat from the stalls, leaving my sister-in-law and a janitor in the office. Hardly 5 minutes later, the mother, E.M., marched in the office and went directly to check on her child. My sister-in-law tried to tell her the kid was running a fever and taking a nap, but entitled mom ignored her. She shook the kid and asked him how he was feeling. The kid said, "Fine." Entitled mom said, "Good. Now get up. You gotta get ready for your play, sweetie. Everyone else is already dressed up." My sister-in-law again tried to explain, "He's running a fever. He wants to rest." Entitled mom replied, "Oh, it's fine. He's fine. Aren't you, sweetie?" The kid just looked at my sister-in-law. Sister-in-law said, "The doctor has excused him from any other activities. It would be better if you just take him home and let him rest." Entitled mom said, "It is just a play. I'm sure my sweetie can handle it. He's a tough man. Isn't that right, sweetie?" Sister-in-law tried again. "It would be better for him to just rest. He is still under fever." And with that, entitled mom lost her mind. She screamed to my sister-in-law's face, "Oh, you know what's better for him? I'm his mother. I know what's best for him. How dare you? My son is the topper of his class. He is playing the most important part in the play. He is the best. If he doesn't participate in the play, he will not get the certificate of excellence. He needs to stay at the top of everything or else he'll become a laughingstock. So don't you dare tell me what's better for him." The kid, seeing his mother losing her mind, stood up and said to my sister-in-law with a smile, "It's okay, sister. I'm fine. Thanks for caring for me." Shocked and stunned, my sister-in-law only managed to say, "Let me call the doctor." Entitled mom retorted, "I come from a family of doctors. My father is the director of a well-known private hospital. You people aren't even qualified to work in a hospital." Huh. She grabbed the arm of her child and marched away. My sister-in-law called the doctor, who said, "Well, it's her child. What can we do? We did our part." About an hour later, the same kid was rushed in again, as he had collapsed during the play. The doctor checked on him, gave him an injection, and asked him to be transferred to a hospital immediately, as the kid was unconscious and not responding. An ambulance was called and kid was taken to the hospital. The day ended without any other incident. 2 days later, the school learned that the kid passed away in the hospital. My sister-in-law was distraught upon hearing the news. She kept crying for the rest of the day. She kept saying how it was her fault and how she could have prevented it if she stood her ground. How the kid smiled at her and thanked her for caring for him. We told her that it wasn't her fault and consoled her to the best of our abilities. Even her professor from nursing school came and tried to make her feel better. About a week later, she was informed that the school was opening an inquiry and a board of inquiry will look into the matter and that she will be called for an interview. The doctor assured her that it was just a formality for school to cover all the bases and she didn't need to worry about it. In her interview, she stated everything that happened. She was then asked why she felt it was her fault, as she said so to the class teacher of the kid in her crying fit. She explained at the time she was overwhelmed by emotions and thought she could have done things differently. She was asked if there was anyone who could corroborate her story, and she named the janitor who was present in the office at the time. She was then informed that she was placed under suspension until the inquiry concluded. When she went back to collect her things from the office, the doctor once again assured her that there was nothing to worry about. He will make sure that no harm will come to her. A few days later, she received a letter from the school that they concluded the investigation and found her guilty of negligence, and thus her contract was terminated. She called the school supervisor, who informed her that her story did not match the story told by the doctor and the janitor, thus there was nothing that could be done. Termination of contract meant that she couldn't complete her final term on time, so she applied for extension to the nursing school. She thought it was over, but boy, were we in for a bomb dropped on us. Part 2. The Legal Trouble. A few days later, 2 cops knocked on the door of my father-in-law and asked to speak to my sister-in-law. They informed them that the family of the kid filed an first incident report against my sister-in-law. They accused her of causing the death of the kid. They asked if they could question her, but my father-in-law denied and told them they can only question her in the presence of a lawyer. So the cop asked her to come to the police station the next day for questioning. We got the lawyer immediately, who at first called the cops and asked for a later date to be set for the question. Then he told us to get an anticipatory bail as soon as possible in case the police decide to arrest her, so we did. In the questioning, the lawyer talked for the most part. He provided them with the written statement of my sister-in-law. The police asked their questions and directed my sister-in-law to not leave the state without informing them first, etc., etc. A few more days went by and she received a summons from the court as the state decided to try her for the crime. The lawyer suggested to track down and speak to the janitor, as he was the only witness in the otherwise she said case. And so we did. The janitor was reluctant to talk at first, but after my sister-in-law begged us, he told us that the doctor told him that if he told the truth, he will be admitting to the same mistake that the nurse did and will be fired for sure, and the only way to save himself was to tell the story that doctor was telling him. The story doctor told to the school's board of inquiry was that the doctor had the kid under observation with the strict instruction that he would not be released under any circumstance, and that my sister-in-law released the kid without asking or informing him. We asked him to testify in court, which at first he refused, but later agreed with a bit of persuasion. Once we had janitor on our side, the lawyer also filed a case of wrongful termination against the school, accusing the inquiry to be partial and biased. Once the court hearing started, we learned that the entitled mother told white lies to the father of the kid. She never told him that she forced the kid to perform in the play. Instead, she said the kid wanted to play his part. She also hid the fact that the nurse objected and showed her the doctor's note. Her story was that the kid wanted to participate in the play, and when she asked the nurse said everything was fine and he could play his part. The case went on for a year and a half. Janitor provided his testimony, which the prosecution tried to discredit, saying that he told a different story during school inquiry, so he was not a reliable witness. But the judge refused, taking note that the doctor tried to intimidate him, and in turn asked the prosecution if they investigated the doctor's part in the incident as to why he forced the janitor to lie and why he was not present during his duty hours. When prosecution replied in negative, the judge asked police to file a case against the school doctor. During her stand, my sister-in-law got very emotional and started crying as she recounted the events of that entire day. The only witness prosecution had was the child's mother, who couldn't keep her story straight during cross-questioning. Finally, the judgment court ruled in my sister-in-law's favor, noting that the prosecution's witness had massive holes in her story, while the defendant provided a solid witness. He also noted that even if prosecution was to be believed, the defendant, being only a trainee nurse, wasn't even qualified to release the student, and by taking the kid away without the doctor's expressed opinion, the responsibility of consequences fell on the mother of the child. He also commented on the school's mismanagement by not having a fully qualified nurse, and they were in violation of federal laws. He scolded the prosecution for having tunnel vision and going after the defendant, who was obviously innocent and a vulnerable young girl herself. After the court ruled in our favor, the school decided to settle the wrongful termination case. It was finalized last month, and we can finally put it all behind us. However, due to all the emotional distress and trauma, my sister-in-law decided to drop out of nursing school, thus ending her dreams of becoming a nurse. She will probably join an honors course next year, but right now she is still troubled with the nightmares of going to jail and needs therapy to get over it. The police have opened a fresh case against the doctor, who was let go from the school this year. He is also being investigated by State's Medical Association for wrongful doings. If found guilty, he will be barred from practice. We have no information on entitled mother or her husband. Edit. Thank you kindly for the generous Reddit for my first gold, although I'm not sure if I deserve it. After all, this is the story of my sister-in-law. Thank you again. Edit 2. Wow, this blew up. I was not expecting it to get as much attention, given the horribleness of the story. Thank you all for the support and love you have given. Kind Redditors who gave me platinum, gold, and silver, thank you for your generosity. And finally, to all the people who are looking and searching for news reports or asking for one, as I have said in one of the comments, it did make local news, but I will not provide any link or give even a remotely identifying detail because the information in the news can be used to track and dox my sister-in-law. She already had a lot of crap to deal with, many of her peers just assuming her guilt. She's having a lot of trouble dealing with the fallout of this entire episode. She's afraid of even stepping out of the house, and she's having frequent nightmares of going to jail. I really do not care whether you believe this story or not, but do not ask me which state it took place or any other detail. I purposefully kept the details in the story as vague as possible. Hope you understand. Thank you once again. First off, I feel absolutely terrible for that sister-in-law because this is something that took up a year and a half or 2 years of her life. And as they've said, gave her so much stress and trauma that she needs therapy now. And she had to feel at least a tiny bit responsible for the death of this child who trusted her, and that would feel awful, even though it is not her fault. First, I hope that doctor goes to jail or something. That's terrible for a doctor to, he abandoned his post and then he's trying to just let this nurse take the blame and intimidating a janitor. Absolutely scum. I cannot believe that. That is just gross. And to the entitled mother or any parent who tries to force their kids to do stuff when they're sick because, oh, but what about their grades or, their performance? They have to be the best, just push through. I have such anger over parents who do this. I know you kind of tell yourselves that it's for the best, and you've somehow convinced in your mind that it is the best for the kid because they need to be successful and succeed and be the top of their grade. Not at the cost of their health. If you're putting that kind of stuff before your child's physical and mental well-being, you're doing bad parenting. Maybe you're not a bad parent. Maybe you have great intentions, but you really need to re-examine how you're going about things because none of what you're doing is going to be good for your child in the long run. And I really feel bad for the trauma some of these kids experience, especially if it costs them their life like this. Story 4. Girl does 0% of the work on a huge project and gets 0% of the credit. This story takes place during my 3rd year of college. I was taking a class where the entire grade was determined by a semester-long final project. We were supposed to be in groups of 3 on the project, but the 3rd guy in our group had more sense than me and bailed early. This left just me and Lazy Girl, hereafter known as LG. Lazy Girl didn't do anything the entire semester. I would ask her to work on pieces of the project, but she always had an excuse for why it wasn't done yet, or in her case, started. Now, I didn't want any confrontation with this girl. She was my friend at the time, but I finally lost it one night toward the end of the semester. I'd asked her to meet at my house to work on the project, but something important came up. Fed up with this one-sided partnership, I decided to air my woes at the local bars. And guess who I run into? Lazy Girl and her boyfriend drinking. She made up some BS excuse, and I made a plan. I powered through the entire assignment except for the conclusion, which I asked Lazy Girl to finish. I held out exactly 0 hope that she would finish this section, so I quickly finished it myself and turned in my project with a little note to the teacher. The note detailed how I had done literally everything for the project and that despite my best efforts, I would not let Lazy Girl to contribute. I said that I was turning in my version and that our conclusion section may differ as I'd asked her to actually do that part herself. So here's a little tidbit about our final projects. We each had to turn one in. Lazy Girl here not only didn't do the conclusion, she didn't turn in a project at all. She tried calling and crabbing at me for not giving her credit, to which I went off on her for not doing crap on the entire project. I mentioned how I even gave her the opportunity to turn in my work for a grade if she'd only do one thing. She hung up after that, and that was the last time we spoke. Well, Lazy Girl, I hope you maybe learned a lesson, though it sounds like you didn't. But hopefully having to redo that class will teach you, because you gotta do something, folks. People in these group projects who just try and skate by and get on the grades of others, you're not doing yourself any favors in the long run. You're not learning anything. You're not growing as a person, and in fact, you're kind of doing the opposite. Do it for yourself, or, and if you're friends, don't expect oh, we're friends, so they'll do this for me. No, have respect for your friend's time and actually contribute. God, that makes me so mad. Oh, Lazy Girl, you deserve what you got, and more. Ugh. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.